Welcome to Cash Flow and Chaos, the real estate podcast where ROI meets WTF.
I'm Chad, checking in from the rainy streets and hot market of Washington State.
Kate holding it down in southern New Hampshire where the flips are fast and the tenants are interesting.
Each week, we bring you market updates, money moves, and the madness behind the deals.
Because every property has a little drama.
Learn from the chaos and build the cash flow. Hey guys, so today we're going to cover financing options for real estate, no matter where you're at in your journey or what the hell you're dealing with it. Uh, One of the ways for financing would be like conventional loans for house hacking. They're going to be for stable properties, not fixer-uppers, long-term holds. Like I said before, good for house hacking. You can get in at 5% down. You'll have PMI until you hit that 20% buffer in equity. You're going to get a lower rate than you would for like FHA or for hard money or anything. Long-term amortization of 30 years, and they're pretty available like nationwide. Most lenders will do conventional loans. Only con is it's strict underwriting. You need to have a strong W-2 or tax returns. Your debt to income, shoot, it's somewhere around like 40% or under. Uh, the lower the better for debt to income. They're going to be slower closings, and the appraisal is going to be a little more strict. So it could kill the deal or just open it up to negotiations. Again, they're better used when the unit is already rent ready for that property, and you can use them on single family up to fourplex, especially for house hacking. And then essentially, it's like the cheapest of the loans, but at the end of the day, whatever loan fits your needs, it gets a deal done. It makes sense.
Yeah, and just to touch upon that for anybody, I don't know if you had explained, but PMI is the mortgage interest on your loan. Just for anybody who might not know, typically when you get, if it's a conventional loan and it's not 20% down, they want to see 20% equity in the property usually. So if it's less than 20% down, they're going to put mortgage interest. And if my understanding is correct, right, Chad, that's basically the government, or there's protection on the loan depending on if it's like governmental or like a local conventional bank doing it. So it just protects their interest in the mortgage.
Yeah, and I want to say it's rough ballpark. It's like 1% of the loan is what your PMI is going to be. I think it's between 0.5% and 1%, depending on the lender.
Yeah. And then another great loan for house hacking would be FHA loans. So this is your first time home buyer house hacker situation again. It has a very low down payment, 3.5%. Credit requirements are a little bit more flexible, so sometimes they can go down a little bit further than a conventional loan would typically do. And this allows small multifamily up to 4 units, including 4 units is considered residential. 5 and above, banks will usually consider that in the commercial market. Con of this would be, again, the mortgage insurance. It does last for a very long time. I don't believe that you could even refinance out of that. I mean, I think you refinance out of it, but you can't do the appraisal like in a conventional loan. I think once you hit 20% in a conventional loan, you can get it appraised. If your appraisal comes back that you have 20% equity, it falls off. But I think FHA, is that correct, Chad? You can't ever get it off an
Yeah.
FHA loan.
It's for the life of the loan, so then you just refi into a conventional loan once you hit that mark.
Yeah. Best usage, house hacking. If you haven't purchased a house yet and you're looking to get into your first house and you don't have a ton of capital, it's what I used for my first multifamily. I got a 4 family with an FHA loan. After I think it was 3 or 4 years, I had that 20% equity and I refinanced out of that into a conventional loan and knocked off that PMI. For me, it was like maybe like $150 or $180 a month. So, can add up. That also is going to cap the available value of the property you can buy too, because they're going to roll that into part of the payment, right? So if you can only afford $2,000 with principal and interest payments, and you don't have PMI, you'd be able to get a higher value house. But if you have to have PMI on it, and now your principal and interest goes down to 1,800 because you have 200 in your PMI, well, that's going to affect, the value of the house, because now you're lowering that principal and interest, where if you had straight principal and interest, you'd be able to get, just the $2,000 payment, not have that lowering or if it goes up to like 2,200, because now you have that principal mortgage interest on it. So did I explain that correct? Maybe I should have said if you go from 2,000 to 2,200, that's going to lower the value of the house now because you have that mortgage interest on it.
Yeah. Yeah. Essentially, the the PITI is including that PMI. So
Yeah.
buy accordingly. Then another loan product that's out there for veterans or veteran spouses or widowed spouses is the VA home loan. And all three of these you have to intend to occupy it for a year. And then the VA home loan, like if you're 10% rated through the VA for uh, service connected disability or whatever, you'll get away with no closing costs or no VA lending fee, I should say. You'll still have closing costs, but you can negotiate that into the deal. You're gonna have zero down payment, no PMI, competitive rates with conventional loans. The only con you can and that can be used for single family up to a fourplex. So if you have access to a VA loan, get a damn fourplex. Don't monkey around on single family. And you have to occupy it. I think it's for like just a year, and then you can have multiple VA loans at a time. It depends on your county loan limit. And then you can always, once you have the equity, like Katie mentioned, you can refinance out of that VA loan to free up your VA loans um, loan limit essentially. So you can just it's an forever going hack if you are able to keep utilizing that and moving around. Some of the
That's awesome.
cons,
I didn't know you could do that forever. I thought it was just like kind of like FHA. You can only have one really FHA out at a
no,
time.
you can have multiple. They have to be a certain distance apart from each other, so you can't have like you're not going to house hack in one zip code, but you can you can get a second home and justify like, oh, I had to go from a 2 story to a 1 story or some whatever the excuse may be. And then once you have the equity, refinance to clear up your loan. Or if someone has to stay local to where they're at because they don't have a car or something or a bicycle, then they can just wait till they have the equity and then refinance it and use that VA loan and stack a bunch of fourplexes and be retired.
Yeah, I think actually FHA does have a little bit of caveat like that. Like if you had to move for like a work or life reason, that in that situation, if you're X amount, like I think it was like 100 miles away, you could then potentially get a second one. But there has to be like a really valid reason. You also want to make sure that your intent too is to live in the property. If there's a four-unit property you want to buy and everybody's leased up now, they just signed new leases for a year, that's going to be a little bit difficult for some of these, especially I know in my experience for FHA, if you can't show that there's a unit available when you buy it or a unit coming available soon thereafter, that's going to be difficult to get an FHA loan because they want to see that you're going to be moving into one of the units.
And then
Were you good on
you're, yeah, that's a VA in a nutshell, essentially.
Yeah. And then another option we have is the DSCR loans. Once you kind of utilize those other ones, or if you already bought a single family and your debt to income ratio now is too high that you cannot get another conventional loan, you can always go to DSCR loans. I have a lot of family and friends that, I always am like, buy real estate. And they're like, I can't, I don't make enough money. My credit's not good enough. I haven't been at this job long enough. Well, this is the loan for you. And I always tell them, go for this loan. Pros on this one, it's based on the property income, not your personal income. It's great for people who are self-employed. You have your own business. It's very fast compared to a conventional loan. Conventional loans are typically more along pushing 60 days. In my experience, 45 to 60 days, and DSCR loans, could be weeks to a month, or maybe very slightly longer, but they're typically quicker to close than a conventional loan. The cons to this are there are higher rates than conventional. I feel like a lot of people get caught up on this. So I have some family that have been wanting to buy real estate for years. Before this run up after COVID, I had been telling them pre 2020, get a multifamily. We have between Dan and I, my husband, we have quite a few sisters. How many are there? Five. And we're like, buy multifamily. And quite a few of them are like, oh, well, the rates are getting higher. I want to wait until my credit's better because then I could get a better rate. And I'm like, just get the rate now with a DSCR loan, and then just to get you in a property, because the equity you're going to get, the tenants paying down your property, the appreciation, the cash flow, that outweighs paying another 1 to 2% in interest. Like, get into
Yeah.
it now if you can. Don't wait.
Yeah.
So I definitely would go to DSCR if you can't get the other ones.
Yeah, because the rates
What are
are
you gonna say?
always moving. They change every day, every week, every month. Like the rate's not forever. What you buy it at is what you're forever locked into. you can always change their
Mhm.
interest rate.
Yeah, one of our sisters, I was helping look for a property a few years ago, and this was like right before the rates really ran up. And I think, I think maybe didn't make enough, wanted to save up a little more money, something along those lines. I think the regular conventional rates were maybe around 3.5%, and I think DSCR was like 5 or so around then. And, kind of her thinking was, well, I don't want to just work to pay for my house. And I was like, yeah, but the rates are going up right now. We saw them on this upward trend pretty dramatically. I had refinanced a couple of my multifamilies right before that, so I got locked in at like 4.5%, I think, on those. But
Right.
I saw the writing on the wall that they were going up, and I was like, "Just get into one now at a DSCR rate at 5% because in 6 months, the conventional rates are gonna be 5% anyway, and then you're gonna be just priced out of the market," and that's kind of exactly what went down. And another thing that's kind of off topic is, don't look at these as this is my forever home because there's very few four families that you're going to go and be like, I love this house. I want to live here forever. No, it's probably going to be a Class C building, especially if you're in the New England area where I am. They're all older typically, and the ones that make sense financially that you could have cash flow and afford, they're not gonna be something that, you see on Pinterest. So you gotta look at it from the point of, this is a temporary situation. At some point, I'm gonna move on from this. So
Any asset class, like it's typically on average, the American homeowner is only there for 7 to 9 years at most in a house before they move on to the next thing, either because their job or their family grew or whatever the hell the case is. It's like stop.
exactly.
Like you're doing this to hit an end goal, not to build a garden and white picket fence and all that silly shit.
Right, it's just temporary, and, like, this is exactly to the point of, like, I drive a little shitbox car around because that's not gonna make me money, and I wanna put my money where it's gonna work for me, so I don't
Well,
wanna be working, every day for the rest of my life. At this rate, people that don't invest in something, real estate or something that's gonna make you money, you're gonna be working till you're 70 years old. My mom's turning 70, she's still working. I tried to get her involved in real estate, and to her, she's not interested, it's not her personality type, and she thinks it's a headache. So I've already been able to leave my job. Our rentals paid for my job, and I was working in corporate America. I was working my way up the ladder. My next step was like probably controller type position, and I was able to leave my job after just investing in real estate for 5 years. Everybody's timeline's a little bit different, but that's what it took for me, and it's definitely one of the best ways to retire, or at least have the freedom to retire whenever you want.
yeah.
All right, so
And
back to
then,
DSCR.
or you want to move on to the next one, or
I think I had a couple more points I wanted to say about DSCR before I moved on, but I kind of had a lot of like personal anecdotal information there that I wanted to share when people are like, "Oh yeah, but the rates are higher." They focus on the rates are higher, and you really need to look at like the big picture and weigh it all globally, not just like this in a nutshell. So a
yeah,
couple of the cons we said were the rates are going to be a little bit higher than normal. And you typically would need a higher down payment, 20 to 25%. And it's not great if the rents are low or you're in the middle of a renovation. It's best to use when the rents have been stabilized or nearly stabilized. So when it's talking about here mid renovation, this is something where maybe you got a hard money loan at the beginning, or you used some of your own cash and you could buy a house and then do the renovations, and then you're now looking to refinance in a DSCR loan. This would be this type of situation, and also best used when you're looking to scale, buy and hold, and you want to keep the qualifying for loans simple. So if you wanted to hop on to the hard money aspect
yeah.
now, Chad.
And that's what I was gonna say. I was like, since you mentioned it, that's how I got started with hard money loans. Well, actually, I started with a home equity line of credit, and I leveraged that with a hard money lender. And a hard money lender is just some people talk about it being like a loan shark, whatever. The high, it's expensive debt, but it's short term. It's 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, 12, 18 at most. But it's because you're buying a shitbox house that nobody can live in, no banks can qualify it, regardless
Right.
of whoever's crying about housing. They couldn't buy it if they wanted to without a hard money loan. Hard money loans also only typically like 90 something percent of the time lend to an entity, not to an individual. It's going to be based off your credit and your track record if you have one, or your experience in investing. They can do fast closings. Some can close a day, 2 days. Once you're underwritten, it's going to be based on again you and then the asset type and their they're willing to fund those dilapidated, ugly, nasty properties that we love to buy that are covered in rat shit everywhere. The cons to it, the interest rate's going to vary between 10 to 15%. You're going to have 1 to 3 points. Again, it's short term, so you can't be putting around, fucking around. Like, you got to get in and get it done.
Yeah, know your numbers, know the timeline. If it's your first one, don't believe whatever the contract. My rule of thumb is whatever the contractor tells me, depending on who it is and how big the project is, I will either add 50% to double the timeline, somewhere in that range, because
Yeah,
it's just,
you won't get penalized for being done early and paying it off early. You'll get penalized if you go like, oh, I'm only going to budget for 6 months.
yeah.
Well, and then the project takes 8, and you take another month to infill it. Now you're not, and you can only do extensions. And when you do an extension with hard money, it's usually 1 to 2 points, and it's only a 30-day extension, and you're paying that chunk every time plus the interest only payments every month. You guys get lucky over, at least on the West Coast. I haven't found any that roll the payments into the loan, like in the Midwest
Mm.
and East. I know some lenders will roll the payments into the loans. So you're not even out of pocket anything except for your closing costs. But yeah, it's where you're going to add value. If you buy that fourplex that needs new bathrooms and kitchens and flooring and paint and everything, they'll cover the purchase and the rehab. You're just going to put up anywhere from 10 to 20% down, 20% typically for a new investor. And once you have a track record of like 4 to 6 deals, you can get 0 to 10% down all day. Not all day, but you call enough lenders and vet enough lenders, you can find them. And then if you can't do any of those, Kate's next loan would cover.
Yeah, the private lenders, this is relationship driven deals. Flexibility is best for these type of situations. Pros are, you have flexible terms, it's cheaper than hard money, and you can have some creative structures, which we'll touch upon in a future podcast, some creative financing stuff. Cons, it really depends on the trust. It's slower to scale if you're only relying on one private lender. It definitely requires strong communication. It's best used when you have credibility or a track record, and deals won't fit in that traditional type of box, and you want the win-win terms. It's typically cheaper than banks, but costs your reputation if you mess it up. I was actually on the opposite side of this last year and loaned some money. And I will say that you definitely need to, if you're going to loan, vet the people. And you should also be doing the opposite and kind of looking into who your private money lenders are. But you definitely want to, you can't, this a lot of times this is people's, it could be their 401k money, it could be, their own personal cash. So you're not dealing with banks here. So if you're gonna screw up here, you're gonna potentially screw up somebody's life savings that they're trying to, just make some extra money on. And we could definitely go into private money lending further on a future episode as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Know your shit before you take someone else's money to work with.
Yeah.
That's my,
Yeah, and I almost got burnt last year for like K, so I wasn't too happy about that. I could definitely, I'll talk about that maybe when it's a little bit further away because I don't want to, I don't want to get any defamation lawsuits. But yeah, so yeah, some quick comparison talking points for these, I guess, would be to go over cheap money, you want conventional, you want to qualify easy would be a DSCR. Quick would be hard money, and for flexibility would be your private money loans there.
yeah. And then the caveat on all that too is like, depending on where you're at nationwide or whatever, look for the small local type banks or lenders, hard money lenders versus like nationwide lenders or nationwide banks because they can be more creative and they can be more relationship driven than the national banks and institutions and stuff because they're cut and dry on what they can do and what they can't do, whereas the small ones can have more flexibility in their stuff.
Yeah, I have a local bank that I try to do all my stuff with, but a lot of times like I have one property now that I'm looking to refinance and they're wanting a DSCR 1.2, which would be fine, but they want to roll in to the operating expenses, the trash removal, management fee, calling and keep calling, and you probably will find some way to make a deal work if the numbers are right. Like there will be someone that you can make this work with.
Yeah. And that kind of leads me into the our chaos story of the week for mine. So a lender that vanished on fucking closing day of a deal that
No.
we'd worked on. We'd worked on it for like 4 months, 6 months. It was an off market deal. It would have been great. It was in an area that's getting gentrified. Like hedge funds had already bought up most of the buildings. We found the little shitbox building that they didn't want, and we already had drawings for adding a third floor to bring it up to scale with the rest of them. Um, gosh, what was it? We did all the vetting. Like I looked them up, I researched them, they checked out, and submitted all our docs and all our underwriting. Appraisal came back kind of low. Contested the appraisal, got it bumped up to where we needed, and then
Oh, they bumped it up to. I feel like when I've done that, they're like, nah, we're keeping this, but you got bumped up. How much was it? Bumped up by
it was like 60 or 75 grand. It was quite
went
a
up
because
70.
they were way off. Like they didn't take into account that we were adding that third floor for the after repair
Mm.
value. And I was like, no, we're adding. It'll be a 2 level duplex, like up and down, up and down. Each one had 2 levels, or would have. But on closing day, they let us know like it was like middle of the day too, not like first thing in the morning, not like the week prior. And they had this shit like we gave them all our paperwork like months ago. So they're like, yeah, you're good to go. They're good to go. And then on closing, they're like, yeah, we're not funding it. I was like, fucking assholes. So then back to the case, I was
Did you
making
see
phone
that
calls.
deal?
We did, but we spent 4 or 5 hours on the phone calling different lenders to try to save it. And then we ended up backing out of it through our due diligence period because the backside of the building was the lack of plate. From the inside, you couldn't tell, but once we finally got access to the back, because there was no alley, but we finally were able to remove the wooden block out of the door, see to the outside, and the whole back wall was a bowed brick wall, and it would need demoed and rebuilt. And I was like, nope, that tanks the numbers. Like we're done. Like deal's dead. When they sell it, wouldn't budge.
Sucks.
Yeah, it is what it is. But it's
I mean,
business.
the
I
reasons
wasn't
that some
emotionally.
fall through, yeah,
Yeah, even though all that shit went happen, it's easy for someone to get emotionally attached. Like, no, I'm seeing this too. But as soon as there was a red
yeah.
flag for the numbers don't make sense, like bounce out. Like fuck that.
What's that thing? I think it's called the sunk cost fallacy, maybe. I don't know what it's called, but when you basically are so committed to something that you just dig a deeper grave for yourself just because you've
Yeah,
committed so much. Like we can't do that. That's how you go under. And like I often find myself like in that mindset. I'm like, oh my God, like you just want to find a way to make it work. But sometimes how they say the best deals are the ones that don't work out for you because you never
yep,
know. Like there's a reason why it didn't work out.
yeah, 100%.
But on to the next one. Yeah. So, yeah, let's talk about how listeners can prepare for financing. So, if you're looking to get ready to buy a house, this some good items to have ready are your 2 to 3 months bank statements. If you, this is for maybe your conventional, your FHA type loans because DSCR, I mean, they'll want to know that you have pretty good credit, but they're not asking for full docs. So you might want to get ready your W-2, 2 year taxes, the P&L for the property you're looking to buy, understanding your DTI or your debt to income ratio, and just be honest about your experience level and ideally have underwriting done for the property. And we'll walk you through underwriting too in some future episodes as well.
So some off of what she said, some actionable takeaways besides getting your shit together for a loan is figure out what loan type you'd want to utilize or need to utilize on your circumstances, and then reach out to those lenders. Talk to five, talk to 10. Like it doesn't cost anything other than time. So have questions on it, but just talk to them. See where you. I have my brother, for example. He's been a renter for forever, and I'm like, buy a freaking house. And he's like, oh,
Yeah.
my credit's too low. I've done this, and then I was like, talk to the lender because you might be paying off the wrong stuff that doesn't matter for qualifying. Like, let them look at your report and decide what you need to work on and pay off to qualify for buying. And it took me like 4 months of pounding him, beating it into him. And now he's already talked to the lender and he's like, oh, I'm actually pretty close and pretty on track to being able to qualify. Yeah, no shit. You just had to get over the fear of talking to somebody. You already expected a no. So the worst case you're finding out is a game plan on how to get your shit straight
Yeah.
and get into a loan.
Yeah, or one of Dan's sisters, I'm trying to get her to buy something too, and she's putting out there like in 2 years we'll be ready, and I'm like, yeah, but why don't you at least talk to someone now and see what would be best for you to get working on? I think maybe she doesn't utilize credit cards, and people think that credit cards are bad, but if you're responsible and you can track stuff in an appropriate way and make sure stuff's paid on time, credit cards can actually be one of your best friends too. And like that's another thing we could go into another episode too, is like utilizing credit cards for not just real estate, but other ways to invest and make money as well.
Yeah.
And also one thing I wanted to add was, if you're looking to buy property, don't go out and like finance a boat or like a Lambo or anything
Yeah.
dumb like that. Like drive your old beat up car. When I was getting my first property, I remember people used to shit talk. They're like, you just love that car.
Or some shit or
No, it was like not an Eclipse, not a Galant. It was like I forget what it was, but it was like $800. It was like in the summertime. I don't know how I just figured this out, but the AC wouldn't work. The fan shit wouldn't work. So I'd have to open the hood and you turn the AC on, and then I would take a lawnmower blade from like my mother's sit down lawnmower, and I would just mash the fucking thing and it would start spinning. But like every time I would need the AC to work, I would turn the car on and I would have the lawnmower blade like in my back seat or the trunk, and I would just open the hood and mash the fucking thing, and then I'd be good for the whole car ride. So I
yeah.
wasn't about to go out and buy like a $20,000-$30,000 car because I was just out of college. Like I'm not getting a $500,000 loan with, if I go out and now I have $500-$600 in car payments every month. So just delay your gratification. It's much better to have financial freedom and like fuck you money if you ever like get laid off, AI replaces your job, or you just hate your boss so much and you just want to walk out. There's no better feeling than not
Yeah.
having to rely and kiss somebody's ass that you can't stand just for a paycheck. So
Because they'll
as you
cut
can
you
tell,
loose in a heart.
yeah, they don't care about you. This isn't like the 90s where there was like any type of loyalty or like job security. We're just not in that type of environment anymore. So that's my little 2 cents I'm going to add on to that. We also, I'm going to put together, it's not ready yet, but I'm going to put together for you guys a little checklist with these different options we spoke about. I'm a very visual learner, so something to supplement our episode here. I will put that on our website. It will be on cashflowandchaos.com/deal financing. And I'll put together a list for you guys that you'll be able to find on there. Just enter your email and we'll shoot it over to your email as well. And then you'll be able to reference that when you guys are looking. And as usual, reach out with any questions. You can reach us at cashflowandchaos@gmail.com. Send us any of your tenant stories, questions. If you want to be featured on our podcast, we're going to be looking for guest speakers as well. And we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Thank you guys for listening. Peace.